Thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Whether you're in need of a website, domain, or online store, make your next move with Squarespace. Point-and-shoot film cameras have gained increasingly huge popularity in the last few years. With the style coming so into trend in current photography, and it being so easy to achieve, maybe you're looking for a way to up the ante and maybe separate yourself from everyone else. Well, here's the Fuji GA645Zi. So this camera is, as far as I'm aware, the only medium format point and shoot. Now there are some other cameras which have autofocus features that are medium format, like the Contax 645 or some of the Mamiya 645s, but all of them are a bit more clunky and built to be studio cameras. However, this Fuji is pretty much just like an oversized 35mm point and shoot. It kind of takes the same form factor and just scales it up a bit, making it really easy to carry around on a daily basis and not take up too much more bag space than a 35mm camera. Something I find fun about using this camera is that it's naturally in portrait orientation. This is because on a roll of medium format film, 6x4.5 negatives actually go on the roll sideways, allowing more to fit on a roll, allowing you to shoot 16 frames instead of, say, 10 with a 6x7 camera, which definitely helps justify shooting medium format in a point and shoot style, because it is more expensive and you do get less photos. However, with 6x4.5, you get a few more. And now, because of the portrait orientation, I think I did find myself naturally taking lots of portrait photos. I don't know if this is just because it's the first thing you see when you look through it, you're kind of inclined to use it like that, or just the scenes that I came across somehow connected with me in a portrait manner. But anyway, I pretty much only took portrait photos. So one of the things that I think is pretty much vital to creating the point and shoot aesthetic is flash. I think this actually has something to do with where the flash is situated on a point and shoot camera. They're normally a bit to the left or right of the lens. And this creates this kind of classic look where there's a harsh shadow of your subject just to the side of them. This look was made popular by people like Terry Richardson, and it's just become a staple of portraiture. And this camera is no different. It's got the look. The flash is bright, it fills the room, it looks pretty good. And what's great is you don't need to know how flash works, you don't need to know any settings. You literally just press the button, the flash pops up, and it will fire. Now, I didn't get a chance to test this extensively, but from what I did do, it looks pretty great. So I actually think that one of this camera's greatest features is probably also its biggest downfall, and that's the autofocus. It's so amazing to have a camera where you can completely switch off, where either if you are a photographer and you don't want to worry about any of the settings, or whether you're new to photography and you don't necessarily know how all the settings work, this camera just does absolutely everything for you. However, this does come as a downside where autofocusing in 1995 was not as good as it currently is. So you do find yourself missing focus a decent amount of the time. I don't know if this was just me, I need to take a bit more time and go a bit slower, or whether it's just a thing that happens. I'm sure through using the camera and getting used to it, you'll get a better idea of photos that will work and that won't. But it definitely is a limitation to have in mind. Now there's actually 3 different models of the GA645. There's a wide fixed lens, a normal fixed lens, and the zoom one, which is the one that I was using. Having a zoom lens is something which I've never actually been that fond of, but whilst walking around I did actually find myself using the telephoto side a bit more than I was expecting. However, the prime lens options do go down to a slightly lower aperture, so if you're trying to get that kind of classic shallow depth of field medium format look, maybe one of them is more suited to you. So as I said, the camera can be fully automatic, however, you can actually do a lot more than that. There's a classic kind of style mode ring on top of the camera, like a dial, and it's got a few different options depending on how automatic or manual you want it to be. So the first option is the ISO, which is actually necessary on a medium format point and shoot because there's no DX coding or anything on the roll like in 35mm. So the camera actually never knows what ISO film you're using, so you have to input this yourself. Now this is one more thing to kind of worry about and have to remember when you change rolls. However, this does make it really easy for you to push or pull film or overexpose it. So actually, I think this is a pretty huge bonus. Then you've got P, which is just automatic. You don't change anything, you just point it, shoot it, it does absolutely all of the settings for you. And then there's two different aperture priority modes, which is the first one, you just choose the aperture, it does the shutter speed for you. And the second one, which is AS, which I think actually caps the shutter speed so that it still can sync with a flash. This isn't something which I've needed, but that does bring me on to saying you can use flash with this camera. It's got a hot shoe and a sync port, which is actually really amazing to have something so automatic but still be able to control it, like in manual mode, which is the final mode on the dial. Yeah, you can have complete control, you can change all the settings, and I think that's actually really cool. It's not something which I tested in this occasion, but knowing that you could use this in a full studio setup just kind of makes it more of a versatile purchase than a pure point and shoot. So who do I think this camera's for? Who should buy it? I think it's pretty much for anyone, actually. Maybe you're interested in taking photos which are nicer than 35mm, but you don't want to deal with all the faff of light meters and settings and focusing. This is great. You can be completely switched off and still take a great photo. Or maybe you're someone who has plenty of manual focus cameras where you have to enter all the settings and you want something to not have to worry about. It's really nice to have one camera where you don't have to think about anything. You kind of just carry it around and snap away. It just feels really fresh and nice and easy to use and refreshing. I think it would probably be the perfect holiday camera. You could even give it to someone else who's with you and they're going to do a good job even if they've never used a camera like this before. As far as the photos which I took, they're alright. They're not special. It was just taken in a couple of hours on the weekend, just kind of wandering around. But I do think this kind of gives an insight onto how it performs. The focusing was a bit hit and miss, but I think that's something which I'd just get used to. It's not something which has put me off using the camera. The one thing which actually did stick out to me quite a lot was the 4:3 aspect ratio. It's something which I haven't shot in probably 3 years, and it was just weird. I found it really nice in portrait, but as soon as I took a photo in landscape, I just felt like they were a bit weirdly long, and I'm sure this is because I'm just so used to shooting 4:5, but yeah, that just really stuck out to me. And the other thing, also related to 6x4.5, is it is an upgrade from 35mm. However, it doesn't really give the same medium format look as something like 6x7 or 6x9. Definitely does have a nice look, but it's not quite as extreme, and maybe that's something which is worth upgrading for. So whether you would just take this camera traveling or maybe use it for some portrait shoots, I think it's pretty versatile and awesome camera, and I'm glad that I got to have a play with it. So in unrelated news, I'd like to announce the exhibition which I've been working towards for the last few months. It's actually my first international exhibition, which is taking place in Ireland at the Periphery Space, from the 19th of July to the 9th of August. I'm going to be showing around 30 images from an ongoing series of work called Lonely Cloud, and I'm probably going to be talking about that a lot more in some future videos. And I'm also documenting the whole process. I'm going to make one mega video showing the trials and tribulations that have gone through making this. Everything's got a bit bigger and a bit more complicated and taking a few more steps to do things. So I think it'll be really interesting. And also just some behind the scenes of going out and taking the photos. This week we were up north taking some photos of power stations. There's plenty of interesting stuff on the horizon, and hopefully some of you will be able to come to the exhibition in Ireland. I think I'm going to be there for around the first week, and it'd be great to see some of you there. So finally, I'd like to thank Squarespace again for sponsoring this video. If you need to build a website of any kind, maybe it's a blog, a shop, or you just need to purchase a website domain, you can do all of this with Squarespace. It's really easy to get a great looking professional site without having any prior experience of building websites. So if you're looking to build a new photography portfolio or anything, you can get 10% off your website using the code negativefeedback. Thank you, and hopefully something soon. Goodbye.